WBAL radio app.
We were just talking about the fact that 2024 is going to be, of course, a presidential election year with national offices, Brian, in Congress, the Senate, and the House. But here in Maryland and Baltimore, it's going to be a local election year as well, with the mayor, president, city council, comptroller, and members of the city council. All those offices will be up for election. We've spoken to several of the Democratic candidates for mayor, and even one candidate who's thinking about it. He's got an exploratory committee in place. But there is a Republican side of the ledger to talk to about this. Joining us right now is Mr. Donald Scoggins. He is a Republican candidate for the nominee to become the nominee in May when that election occurs, May the 14th, to run for the office of mayor. He is a Army Reserve retired officer and has extensive history when it comes to housing, particularly in the Washington, D.C. area. Good morning, Mr. Scoggins.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you doing today? And thank you very much for having me on.
Doing great. For our purpose of conversation, I'm just going to call you Don, okay, as we get through this.
Call
Is that
me
all right?
Don, right.
All right.
Yeah, I'm more than just a Army Reserve retired officer. I have quite an extensive background, if you noticed.
I sure did. And we can get into that. I want to start, though, if I can, Donald Scoggins, when it comes to the candidacy for mayor, since a lot of your experience has been in the Washington, D.C. area. Why are you considering running for mayor? Why are you running for the mayor of Baltimore City as a Republican?
Okay. Number one, I do not agree with much of the precepts or principles of the Democratic Party because in my view, over the last 60 years, our community, the black community, has continually deteriorated on all measures over the last 60 years of failed government policies, primarily introduced by the Republican Party. By the Democratic Party. By the Democratic Party.
All right. So, what are your platforms like? What are you? If you're mayor of Baltimore, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you that. Number one, Baltimore is quite dysfunctional, and you can't blame it all on the elected leaders in the city. You have to look at the General Assembly. You have to look at some of the business interests downtown that elected, that have been influencing things. So it's a myriad of things that's wrong with Baltimore, and I really don't want to take up all this time talking about it because everybody knows how bad Baltimore is. And the reason why I'm running is because I'm concerned about the young people. I'm concerned about the black community. I'm concerned about the elderly. I'm concerned about things that when I was a young person, we did not think that this is what it would be like in the year 2024, and I'm going to be quite frank about it. And Maryland calls itself a bastion of liberalism, looking out for the downtrodden. They have all these lofty titles and everything of what they do, but you might as well be back in the Jim Crow days. Jim Crow days were better than it is now in Baltimore.
Donald Scoggins is on board with us, Republican candidate for trying to be mayor. Once again, May 14th is a primary date, and then general election in November. You tout 40 years of experience in project management and working with nonprofit housing corporations. And as you note on your campaign piece, we have a horrible vacant house problem here in Baltimore. Can you speak to that, Donald Scoggins, and what you would do?
Okay, what I would do, number one, I would get the cooperation of the other folks who have responsibility of doing this. We have to do a surgically, I mean surgically, redevelopment or revitalization of the inner city or the central part of Baltimore. And you can't do it in a scatterbrained way. You have to have a plan to do that. And it's not going to be done overnight because what's happened, that you have some vacant and boarded up properties that's been that way for 50 years. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not a miracle worker, but what I will do is I will be very transparent, and I will exercise integrity, and I'm not going to be bought by anybody by someone who has a special interest, and that is what has happened in Baltimore.
All right. What about crime? What are you doing?
What I would do is work very hard to reform the school system. When you say the crime is a part of poor education and poverty. And all these things tie together. You can't take them individually. And over the last 50, 60 years, the family structure has been destroyed. The best social policy is an intact are a functioning family. And that's what has to be done, and it has not been done. And you have all these elected leaders there. They have all these lofty saying, and then they put the D beside the name so they can get elected. Then once they get in office, they do nothing.
So, Mr. Donald Scoggins, Republican, once again, candidate to become mayor, let me ask you, how do you, in a city that has 9 Democrats for every 1 Republican, how do you convince Democrats to give you a look?
Okay. Well, number one, you said, okay, you're correct. Baltimore is a highly democratic city, and the reason why is because in the military there's something called psychological operations, and that is what has been done in Baltimore for the last 50, 60 years. They have systematically inculcated in the minds of people that the Democratic Party is the best thing since sliced bread, and look what we have. And I've talked to people in the community, in the streets, so to speak. The elites and those who are in advantageous positions, of course they say, well, you know, Baltimore's a Democratic city; it's overwhelmingly Democrat. But when you talk to the elites of in the streets, those who need help, they don't care they don't care what party you're from, as long as you want to do something, and you need somebody with some backbone. That's what you need.
Right.
And I have backbone.
All right. First day in office, anything you would do? First day in office right away? Make a change, a bold change?
First day in office, you're not going to make a change in one day. But the first day I would do is I would get with the police department and not tell them, but I will encourage what I would like to see done. And I will try to get with the school system. I mean, these are with the first day one is going to be a introductory day to certain people to what I expect to see. And I'm not going to be letting any cobwebs grow, and then, 10, 15, 50 years from now, they'll be talking about the same thing if we're still around.
Right.
So I'm going to be getting with the tentacles that has caused the impediments of progress or moving things along in Baltimore. And I will tell you this, to be quite frank about it, and I don't know if you're going to cut this off, but the media is complicit also.
Okay, how so?
We didn't cut you off. See, you're still on.
Yeah,
we didn't let you
we
go.
We like to talk about the media.
Yeah.
What's the media being complicit with?
Well, me and there are several other candidates who are running as a Democrat. I will admit that they're running as a Democrat. But it's been very difficult, and I appreciate you having me on this show. But many of them and us have been it's been very difficult to get any media attention other than what the media says are the 3 or 4 major candidates for the mayor.
I get you.
Well, I just want you to know that's why I reached out. I appreciate you reaching out. I reached back out to you because, Mrs. Scoggins, we wanted to get you on board. In the last minute or so we had with you, what is your, if you want to have a closing argument, what are you telling Baltimore voters of why they should consider Donald Scoggins for mayor?
Well, number one, they should consider me because I'm honest. That's number one. I'm unbossed and unbought. That's number one. And number two is I'm very passionate about this. I've seen how the communities, not just in Baltimore, but across the country, particularly in minority and black communities, I've seen how conditions have deteriorated over 40, 50, 60 years. And they've been headed by Democrats. The only thing Democrats want from black folks is to be widgets. Around election time, we got to round up the black people. We're concerned about whether the blacks are going to come out and vote. Then they come out and vote. Then what do they get? Nothing. And it's indicative if you walk up and down or drive up and down parts of Baltimore, which is supposed to be a bastion of liberalism, and it's supposed to be one of the wealthiest states in the country. And look at it in the inner city. And I'm really sick and I'm really tired of it.
Well, I can hear it in your voice.